Very early in my music career, when I first started recording and sharing music with the outside world, really often people would tell me that they thought I sounded a little bit like Joe Satriani. It was the late 80s and that whole Satriani, Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen kind of guitar shredder scene was really prominent in the guitar playing world. And for some reason, when people would compare me to Satch, it actually made me upset. I had spent a lot of time transcribing music from George Lynch and Viv Campbell from Dio and some of my favorite players from back then, Yngwie Malmsteen too, but Satriani stuff was actually not something that I had learned any of until quite a bit later. So, 20-year-old, giant big ego me didn't want to be compared to anyone else but myself.
Look at the size of that boy's head.
Well, it's 30 years later now, and I've definitely learned plenty from Joe Satriani's playing and songwriting, and thankfully my ego is not so ginormous anymore as it used to be, and I'm really flattered if anybody is going to compare me to any player as brilliant as that. So anyway, let's talk about the 5 things that had the greatest influence on my playing that I learned from Joe Satriani. Not so much his 5 most used habits, but the 5 things that I noticed the most and influenced my playing. And welcome to Music with Marky. When I do these top 5 habits videos, the idea is not to just learn 5 common licks from a player, but rather to look at them conceptually and try to take it as something that you can use in your own style, modify, and use just more as a logical idea that informs your own playing. And picking just 5 things from a player with the vocabulary as immense as Joe Satriani's was not easy, but there were definitely 5 things that I could take that had a big influence on me and I noticed in my playing later and became part of my own sound, and hopefully they'll be a catalyst for yours too. And I'm going to tell you now that the 5th thing on the list is probably the single most important thing I learned about playing guitar and writing music. But first, let me play like a miniature song here. I put something together, it's like a minute and a half, and I'm taking those 5 ideas, incorporating them all into the song, and I'm even writing it in such a way that it sounds like I'm definitely trying to sound like Joe Satriani. So let's roll that, and then we'll come back and talk about each one of the 5 things. So right off, the first thing we do is start playing in the Lydian mode. If you don't know anything about modes and scales, I have a whole series on that. I'll link that up here. But Satriani is the first guy I heard using the tonality of the Lydian mode, and it has that cool kind of tense feel. We're in the key of E minor or G major in this song, and so C is the Lydian mode, and you see I started right with that real tenseness that comes from starting in the Lydian. And I did it in the lead a little bit too in the B section. So the Lydian mode is a general concept, but definitely not something you heard in a lot of rock music before, and hearing him do it inspired me to do it. The second thing that I ended up using a lot in my playing is the mixing of the pentatonic minor with the full minor scale that's underneath it. In the song, you saw me go to the typical pentatonic tropes, and then I'll just mix in these other notes that are in the scale. And I'll go back and forth between pentatonic minor, which has that cool rock sound that we all know, and the full minor. I like to seam the two together a lot, and that's definitely something that Satriani is expert at. The third thing I did was this kind of harmonica double stop thing that I heard Satch use a lot, and I did it at the end of the A section there where I played the 6ths. I had the E and the C note here on the E string, and I was doing it with my thumb and finger. I let go of the pick, I put it in the crease of my other finger there, and a nice bluesy, bluegrass kind of technique mixed in with straight up rock. I love to do that, and you can do it all kinds of different ways. I'll do it right in the pentatonic here, and again, switch to my fingers to make that sound different. So going back and forth between fingers and pick and using double stops with your fingers can make for a really cool texture and different sound. Technique number 4 is something I got from Always With Me, Always With You off of his first record, and that is when I want to build to a climax of a part, to use double stops to build. You know, Eddie Van Halen would do this thing at the end of a solo with a tremolo picking. And I like to do something that I got from Satch, which is to take an ending and go from single notes to 2 notes together, dyads, double stops, whatever you want to call them. So maybe I'm ending adding that tension of the fifths and fourths there on the top 2 strings sounds really cool and definitely lends to a feeling of a climax. Okay, and now for thing number 5, and as promised, it's a huge lesson for writing music and writing instrumental songs especially, and that is that I observed Satriani not just writing what you see so many people do with instrumental songs, which is just like kind of a stream of consciousness. They lay a background down and just play a bunch of leads, and there's no thought to real song structure a lot of the times. And with Satch, the songs are almost like they were written to have vocals on them, and then the guitar does the singing. And he writes melodies, there's a clear A part and B part, verse, chorus, sometimes pre-chorus, chorus, and there's actually a solo. You know, you'd think a solo in an instrumental song sounds kind of weird, but it's mostly melody around certain parts with a little bit of flash, and then there's a solo section just like there would be in a song with vocals, and then back to a melody. And I started writing my own instrumental music with that very much in mind. And in this little miniature track here, we just did an A and a B part, and you had like the melody, and I looked for a melody right away. It was the first thing I did. So you had that, and I built off of that. I would play the melody once, twice, and then the second time, do something with the melody to wander away from it a little bit. And the other thing is at the end of the part leading from A to B, from the verse to the chorus, to definitely sound like an ending, have a climax. I did a very kind of tropey tapping thing there, working my way all the way up to resolve at a B note. And then for the chorus part, instead of writing a melody, I just did it. It was quick, 4 measures or 8 measures there. And I just did the pentatonic thing and did the double stops to go to the ending. But if I was doing a full instrumental track there, I would definitely have a second melody for the chorus part. And you notice I use different guitar sounds too. So you can definitely differentiate the parts between each other. I had that kind of wah, auto wah thing on the verse and a more open kind of regular lead sound for the chorus part. So again, I would say the main takeaway here is if you're going to start writing instrumental music, definitely think about it as if it was going to have vocals on it. Write a good composition. Don't just write a pad for you to noodle over. Write something that people actually want to hear and focus on the melodies. A melody, wander away from the melody, go back to the melody, part to part to part. So I hope that all made sense and you get something out of it and you can pull it into your own style like I did and go somewhere with it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And until next time, guys, keep making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.